Hey everyone, Tu here. Today I'm reviewing the Huion Kamvas Pro 19 4K touchscreen pen display. First of all, disclaimer, this is a review unit provided by the company. And in this video, I'll just present to you my findings so that you can decide whether this is worth the money. And the price for this pen display is US $1,099. Also included with the purchase is the Huion K20 Keydown Mini, which is worth $50. Let me give you the bottom line up front by telling you 3 pros and cons. This display has good color accuracy. I measured color support for 98% sRGB, 93% Adobe RGB, and a maximum brightness of 213 nits. The pen performance is excellent, as in the pen is really sensitive. And because of that, the drawing experience is really good. And the matte textured surface feels really nice to draw on. The third thing I like is the touch screen, which makes the drawing workflow more fluid, more natural, because now you can zoom, pan, and rotate. For the cons, the biggest downside would be the visuals look slightly softer. I'm not sure if my camera can capture what I'm trying to show you, but you can see the text is not the sharpest, but you can still clearly make out what the text is, of course. And you can see the edges, they are not the, sharpest. When I'm browsing web pages or working on my artwork, I can see the visuals are not the sharpest, even when I do not have another display beside to compare with. However, the visuals are not blurred, as you can see. It's just that the visuals are not tack sharp. So this is okay with me. However, this could be a potential deal breaker for people who are very particular about the display quality. The next downside is the fold-out feet behind can only deploy this pen display at this low angle, which is comfortable for drawing. However, if you want to prop up the display higher, or if you want to elevate the display, you have to spend extra to buy a stand, which I highly recommend you do so, because it's just more ergonomic to be able to prop up the display. And also, when you have a stand like this, you can use the display as your main display. So these are the pros and cons at a glance. There are other downsides, but those are really minor issues, which I will talk about later. So that's the bottom line. This is a beautiful pen display with good colors and excellent drawing performance. So the main downside is the visuals are slightly soft. And now let's move on to the main review by showing you what's included with the purchase. This pen display was released in January 2024 together with the Huion Kamvas Pro 27, which is selling at US $2,000. So that's even more pricey because it's bigger. So we have foam to protect the pen display, which I have already taken out. This is the color calibration report from the factory. The important thing to see here is average delta E is less than 1. So anything less than 2 is good, less than 1 is great. It is good that the pen display has been color calibrated at the factory, because not everyone has a color calibrator. Anyway, I use multiple displays, so I will still need to color calibrate the Huion display as well. So this is the packaging for the pen display, and we have a quick start guide to show you how to connect the pen display, which I will show you later. And these are the accessories. That's a 2-meter long 3-to-2 cable with support for HDMI. If you use HDMI for video, you will also need to connect this USB-C to power the pen display, and this USB-A to your computer so that the pen can work. And on the other end, these 2 USB-C will go to the pen display. And here is a 2-meter long USB-C to USB-C video cable. And this is a USB-C to USB-C power cable. The cables are thick, so they should be durable. Behind this foam is the power adapter. And this is the power plug for my country. By the way, I'm from Singapore. This is a double flat pin that you can pull out. This power adapter supports 65 watt charging, and that's the USB-C port. The last few items are this microfiber cleaning cloth, an artist glove, and this is padded, so it's nice. And this is the Huion K20 Keydown Mini. This is a Bluetooth shortcut remote that I have reviewed last year or 2 years ago. I'll link to that review in the video description below. And there is also the charging cable for this remote in the box. This is the pen case. So this part here is curved, so you can put the pens horizontally or you can put the pens vertically. And on the back there is the nib remover and 2 rubber feet. The cover can close with magnets because there are 2 magnets here, and inside the pen case there are 2 pens. This is the Huion PW600 and this is the PW600S slim pen. There are 5 replacement felt nibs included and 5 plastic nibs. This pen uses Pentec 4 and it supports slightly over 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. There is also tilt sensitivity. This pen is not powered by battery, so no charging is required. There are 3 customizable buttons on the side and 1 eraser at the back. For the PW600S, there are only 2 side buttons. The silicone or rubber grip is quite hard, but not as hard compared to the plastic body. And this is quite smooth. This is comfortable to hold, and from what I can see, it doesn't attract dust, which is great. Both pens have already been installed with the textured felt nibs, and the pen nibs have minimal in-out movement. I'm not sure why Huion could not include the 3rd button on the slim pen, which is quite useful as you shall see later. Let's look at the design of this pen display, which looks pretty good to me. The design is clean and simple. The bezels are uniform on the 4 sides, corners are rounded off, the build quality is quite solid, and this weighs 2 kg, so it's kind of light for a display of this size, and the display is actually 18.4 inches. The resolution is 4K UHD, which is 3840 by 2160 pixels, so the aspect ratio is 16:9. And the refresh rate is 60 Hz. This display is using aged glass, so this is not a matte screen protector, so it's very unlikely for your pen to scratch the display. And this matte textured surface, oops, I accidentally activated the Windows shortcuts. So this matte textured surface has anti-glare, and this is how the anti-glare looks when it's diffusing the reflections. And this is how the reflection looks. So it's basically this spotlight here, which is diffused to look like this. The anti-glare is not that aggressive, and what I mean by that is you can see the diffused reflection, but you can still see the visuals very clearly behind the diffused reflection. Anyway, when there is no light source facing the display, this is the visual quality you can get. So using my Spider X2 Ultra color calibrator, I measured color support for 98% sRGB, 93% Adobe RGB, and 88% DCI-P3, and a maximum brightness of 213 nits. So right now I'm actually running the display at just 50% brightness, and 200 nits is more than sufficient for indoor use, even in a bright room environment. All matte textured glass or matte textured screen protectors will introduce some color noise or grain, and on this display it's kept to a minimal, which Huion calls anti-sparkle. But this matte textured surface also affects the sharpness of the visuals. So you can see in this close-up, the visuals look slightly softer. The text is slightly softer and the edges are slightly softer. And just for comparison purposes, this is how my low-resolution laptop LCD looks. So So there is noticeable pixelation, but you can also see the text and the edges are sharper. Now when I'm working from one arm's distance away, this looks alright to me, but for people who are very particular about the image quality of their displays, this could be a potential deal breaker. This display is laminated, which means there is no gap between the LCD and the glass. But because the glass is kind of thick, so there is still this gap between the line and the pen tip. Now this gap is more obvious from this angle because my camera is pointing from the side. From where my eyes are looking at, the cursor or the line is directly beneath the tip. And cursor tracking at the extreme edge is quite accurate. So you don't see the cursor stray away from the pen tip at the extreme edge. And also the cursor doesn't stray away from the pen tip regardless of the angle of the pen. This is the back of the display. There are two rubber feet here, but none at the top because you're supposed to fold the two fold-out feet out. It looks like there are speakers in this pen display, but these are actually not speakers. The rubber feet do provide very good grip on the table. This is matte textured and it feels cold to the touch, so this is probably metal. All the edges are bevel and the build quality is really solid. There are two cutouts here which allow you to lift the pen display easily. And on this side, there are the ports. These two ports are not labeled, which means they are interchangeable. And there is one 3.5mm audio jack. Now the thing with this is when you connect the pen display to your computer, you will lose the sound. What I mean by that is with this connected, the audio output will switch to this pen display, which has no speaker, so there will be no sound. So if you want sound, you have to switch the audio output back to your computer or to your other speaker through the OS settings. Let's talk about connection. So this is my laptop and this is the pen display. And right now I'm actually using USB-C video connection. So one cable goes to the laptop and the other cable goes to the power source. Depending on the computer you use, you may be able to power the pen display, but the thing is this pen display actually uses more power compared to typical portable displays, so chances are you will have to connect this to additional power source. So this is a two cable connection. If you use HDMI connection, you have to use the 3-to-2 cable. So this will go to the HDMI port and this will go to the USB-A port. You have to connect this to USB-A, otherwise the pen will not work. And the third cable will go to power. And on the other end, there are two USB-C cables and they will go to the pen display. This pen display supports power pass-through or reverse charging. So if this is connected to enough power, it can actually charge your laptop up to 40 watts. The next thing I want to talk about is the touch screen, which only works with Windows and not with Mac OS. So if you're using Mac OS, you're paying for a feature that you cannot use. So Windows support 10-point touch, and by default, there are already some finger gestures that work with Windows. For example, if I use 3 fingers to swipe up, oops. This is the Windows gesture shortcut. And if I use 3 fingers to swipe down, it minimizes all the apps. Now, if you are using an app that supports finger gesture shortcuts, and by that I mean additional shortcuts that are not pan, zoom, and rotate. For example, with concepts, I can actually create shortcuts for 3-finger tap or 4-finger tap. However, because there are already Windows shortcuts that use 3 fingers and 4 fingers, there will be conflict. So you will have to turn off the Windows shortcuts through the settings, or just don't use the shortcuts for the drawing app. Having a touch screen, I've got to say, is actually quite convenient because you can see the buttons, you can see the tools where they are, and you can just touch the buttons to activate whatever you want to activate. So it's quite convenient that way. And when you're drawing, there is pan, zoom, and rotate, which makes the drawing workflow more fluid and just more natural. On a smaller Windows tablet where the display is smaller, such as the Surface Pro, which has a 13-inch display, I find that my hand is usually closer to the edge of the display. And I have a tendency to pull out the widgets like that when I'm drawing because my palm or my fingers are near the edge. By the way, you can also pull out the widgets from the left side. So when I'm drawing and suddenly this happens, it's really annoying. Now, with a large display, I can have my hand further in, which is much further away from the edge. So this does not happen anymore, which is great. And also because my palm can be further in, I also have less tendency to touch any of the icons here, which can also activate the widgets. The animation for the finger gestures is quite smooth. Oops, we can see I've accidentally drawn this line. Now, not many drawing apps support finger gesture shortcuts. For example, with this app Huion Paint Pro on Windows OS, it doesn't support 2-finger tap to undo. So many drawing apps just support the basic gestures for pan, zoom, and rotate, but for 2-finger, 3-finger shortcuts, that will really depend on the app you use. With some of the drawing apps, you may also have to go into the settings to enable palm rejection. So earlier on, you saw me draw some straight strokes because my finger was on the canvas. And now if I draw with my finger, nothing happens. So if I draw with a pen, I can draw with the pen. But if I draw with my finger, nothing happens. So this is pretty good palm rejection. But sometimes, if you can see the palettes by the side, sometimes when I'm drawing, my palm may actually activate some of the buttons here or move some of the layers here. It doesn't happen that often, but it can happen. This palm rejection issue is not a hardware issue, it's a software issue. It also happens on the Surface Pro and other tablets that runs Windows OS. This 18.4-inch display is a really comfortable size to work with for drawing because you can see the UI, the text, the icons, they look big and you still get a good amount of canvas space to work with. And this is how big the display is when compared to an A4 size paper. So if you are creating an A4 size piece of art, you can actually see your artwork at 1:1 size. There is one touchscreen issue you should be aware of, and this is due to Windows, not because it's a hardware thing, because it affects the touchscreen display as well. So if you find that you're using touch or finger gestures on your touch screen display and it actually moves the cursor on your other display, you have to go into Windows settings. You know what? Let me just show you. Just do a search for Control Panel. Under Control Panel, look for Tablet PC Settings. Under Display, Configure, click or tap Setup and go through the setup. During the setup, Windows will tell you to touch the touch screen so that it knows which is the touch screen. So next time when you use finger gestures, it will only work on the touch screen. And now let's see what the driver can do. So this is the Windows driver. The macOS driver has almost similar functionality, except for the Windows driver, there is this additional Windows Ink feature, which you may have to enable or disable if pressure sensitivity is not working as expected. So under pen display and under working area, this is where you can map the working area to an external display that you may be using so that you can use the pen on the pen display to control the cursor on the other display. Chances are you can leave this as default. Monitor calibration is important. If for some reason the cursor is not beneath the pen tip, you will have to calibrate the monitor. There is nothing under press key because this pen display does not have hotkeys by the side. Under digital pen, this is where you can customize the side buttons. So you can customize the PW600 and PW600S. So let's click this button, the third button. So these are some of the functions you can set to the shortcut buttons on the pen. You can assign a keyboard shortcut, you can assign mouse clicks, you can have it switch screen, which will move the cursor from one display to the other, and I have that set to the middle button. This quick menu is very useful. So you can click here to customize the quick menu. So when you click on this button, 6 more shortcuts will appear on the screen. So if I click here right now, you can see I have 6 shortcuts. And you can choose to fix the shortcuts at the location, or you can choose to just turn off the quick menu. So let's say I want to place the quick menu here, I can just, fix it here. Yeah, and now it's fixed and will not move and will not disappear. And this is where you can customize the pressure sensitivity of the pen. I have mine customized like this so that I can draw thinner lines more easily. So when you have the key dial or shortcut remote connected with Bluetooth, you can use the same driver to customize the key dial. This is actually quite useful, and I shall show you how useful it is later while drawing. And that's pretty much what this driver can do. And now it's time for the line test. So I'll go through the 6 tests that I always do. The first test is for the initial activation force, and this is how thick the line really is. It's very thick, it's 95 pixels. Let's draw several thin lines. The pen tip is gliding on the surface, but I'm barely applying any pressure, and yet I can still get the thin lines. So the initial activation force with this pen is really low, and the cursor accuracy is pretty good. So the lines always come out exactly the way I expect them to be. Let's draw some diagonal lines slowly. So let's draw a very slow diagonal line here. And this is very straight. Here's another diagonal line. This is also really straight. Yeah, so no issues with diagonal line wobble or jitter. So the lines are able to taper quite well. As in, when you draw lines like this, you can see the lines taper smoothly and sharply. And the lines will start thin, becomes thick, and thin again. So this looks really natural. So earlier on I was drawing like this, now I'm holding the pen like this in different direction. And the cursor is still directly beneath the pen tip. So there is no cursor misalignment regardless of how you hold the pen, and also whether you're holding the pen vertically or low down at an angle. Next, let's look at how the line transitions from thin to thick. So let me just show you this. Thin, thick, thin, thick, thin, and thick. So this is the true test for pressure sensitivity. Now there are sensitive pens being advertised from other companies and other brands. But the thing is, when you try to draw with some of those pens, it is very difficult to draw the thin lines after drawing the thick lines. So when a pen is not that sensitive, you will get lines like this. Thin, thick, and when you try to draw the thin lines, the lines will not be this thin. It will be like this. So those are the pens that are not that great. But for this pen, this is really good because you can draw thin lines after drawing thick lines. So what this means is you can choose a very thick brush and just vary the amount of pressure you apply to get thin and thick lines, which means you don't have to adjust the brush size manually, which means your workflow will be smoother and faster because there are less interruptions. For line consistency, what I'm looking for is whether I can maintain the line width when I'm maintaining consistent pressure. And so far from what I can see, all the lines, they are consistent. Yeah, so if I want the lines to be thin, I just maintain the pressure. It's really simple because the performance is very predictable for this pen. Yeah, so line consistency is great. So when a pen has very predictable performance, when you're drawing, you don't really think about the tool you're using. You're just drawing, which is great. Okay, next let's test for, what's that? Dots, whether you can draw dots. So let me just place the dots maybe on the ground. Yep. So that you can see. Yep. And the dots will react with pressure as well. Okay, the last test number 6 is on what's that? Cursor misalignment. Basically, what that means is when I try to draw lines, when I draw lines, separate lines, I will see whether I can connect them like this. So if I can connect this part here to this part without the line overshooting or without the lines leaving gaps, then it means this pen has, or this pen display has good cursor tracking and there is no misalignment issues. Let's draw the thick line here and maybe let's just turn this, turn this around to erase. Yeah, I know there are artists who prefer to erase with the eraser at the back. I just prefer to use keyboard shortcuts. The matte textured drawing surface feels really nice. And also I'm using the felt tip, so it feels really good. It's not, the pen tip is not slippery. It glides quite smoothly. I would say the experience is kind of similar to drawing with a smooth ballpoint pen or paper. It's that level of smoothness, but it's not slippery. There is some texture, as in when I'm drawing, I can actually hear the pen tip make a sound against the matte surface. And because the matte surface is not that rough, I don't think it's going to wear out the felt nibs that quickly. Anyway, the felt nibs are not very expensive to replace. You can just buy them from Huion. And I would definitely recommend the felt nibs over the plastic nibs because they feel so good. When you're drawing with the plastic nib, when you're drawing, you can hear the tapping sound, but with the felt nib, there is no sound. I mean, the sound is just the pen tip or pen nib gliding on the surface, which sounds quite satisfying, by the way. Yeah, this 18.4-inch display is a really comfortable size to work with. More specifically, I can have my hand closer in so that my hand will not touch or activate the palette by the side. If I'm using a smaller tablet, sometimes I may just, hide the palettes by the side so that I won't touch things accidentally. But for this size, I can still leave the palettes by the side, even though in this case I'm not really using the palettes by the side. Yeah. And also at this size, you can see your visuals big. So it's quite satisfying to work on such a big display. And also your palettes are quite big by the side as well. The text, the icons, the navigation, the menu, all the visuals, the UI elements look big. So they are easier to see. And because this tablet is, I'll say, big enough, you can still keep your palettes by the side. Did I say this is a tablet? This is a pen display, it's not a tablet, which means you have to connect this to a computer. So there are many people who would mix up pen displays with tablets because nowadays pen displays are so thin, but it's not a tablet, it's a pen display. A tablet is something that is portable. Nowadays I'll refer to a tablet as something that is portable with built-in battery and OS. There are of course those screenless tablets that are still called tablets though. The app that I'm using is Mediabank Paint Pro. I like to use this app because it doesn't provide any software correction to the line. Yeah, so I'm drawing with zero correction, which means there is zero smoothing, and yet I can draw the lines, as you can see, pretty straight. Yeah, so the drawing performance of this pen display is it's really good. The brightness of the pen display, I would say, is pretty good as well. 213 nits. Yeah, that is sufficient for use even in a bright room environment. Yeah, so right now I'm actually recording indoors at night with fluorescent lighting. So this looks pretty bright. And I'm actually running this at 40% brightness right now, which is bright enough for me. Okay, so this sketch is almost done. Let me just turn off the drafting lights. Yeah, drawing experience is really good. Let me switch over to using another app, Concepts. Concepts is an app that is designed for use with tablets, so it works really well with touch screens. If you are using this app without a touch screen, you will have to use a keyboard for all the shortcuts. So I have already customized some shortcuts into the shortcut remote. So as I press the shortcut remote, you will see the tools switching. So for this app, I can set 8 shortcuts or 8 tools. So if I need to switch to maybe create a line art, I can do so. If I need to switch to drawing with the red pen, switch back to drawing with the black line, I can use the keyboard shortcuts or the shortcut remote to change the tools really quickly. By the way, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I'm actually drawing on top of the cardboard box because, as mentioned earlier, it would be really good to be able to prop up the pen display higher so that it's at a more comfortable height for drawing. Now the angle is good, it's just that the height is not that great. So I highly recommend you buy a laptop stand that has a big base so that you can put this on top of the laptop stand and the laptop stand will be stable. I'm not sure if I can find such a laptop stand, but If you do need to buy a laptop stand, buy one with a big base, one that doesn't rotate, one where you can adjust the hinge with some Allen key, and one with a big plate so that you can rest the pen display on the big plate. Basically, you need the stand to be stable. Otherwise, when you're drawing, you don't want the thing to shake or worse, have the pen display roll off the laptop stand. Usually tablet stands are smaller, so try to get a laptop stand. And get a laptop stand where the latch is big enough or long enough to support the bottom of the pen display. Otherwise, the pen display may, slip off from the front, and that would be a disaster. Let me switch over to the pen. Okay, so that's the pen. I just want to add some maybe additional buildings. Not that I need to add them, but I just want to talk about the workflow with this app. So this app, Concepts, actually supports tilt sensitivity. However, tilt doesn't work with this app for some reason. Yeah, but tilt works with Photoshop. I have tested. As in, when you turn your pen, the stroke will actually follow your pen. So tilt works with Photoshop and I think Sketchbook. Yeah, tilt also works with Sketchbook and with Krita. So I'm going to switch to 2 number. I'm not sure which number that is. Let me just go to this layer, the correct layer. Yeah, let's draw that. Let's use this and switch to maybe this tool. And use the eyedropper to pick up the color. Color this part here, fill this part here. So this is a very stylized sketch. And you can see the animation for zooming in and out. It's quite fluid. Now for this app, when I zoom like this, you can see the white rectangle outside. That's normal for this app. Now this display resolution is 4K UHD. I'm using a laptop that does not have a graphics card, so it's just using the Intel Iris Xe graphics card, and it's able to run this resolution quite smoothly without lag. One issue that I discovered is when I press this shortcut for quick menu, the quick menu actually appears on the laptop display instead of beneath the pen tip where it should appear. And this problem happens with Concepts app, Sketchable Plus, and Affinity Photo. And it works fine with Clip Studio, Photoshop, Affinity Designer. For some reason works fine, but not Affinity Photo and other drawing apps. And now let me show you how Quick Menu works and how convenient it is. I've just opened up Affinity Designer where Quick Menu works properly. So I've already customized Quick Menu for it with this side button. So if I press, Quick Menu will appear beneath the pen tip. So I can press and have the quick menu appear here, and I can fix it. So there is a word there called fix. You just tap on it and quick menu will be fixed here. It will not disappear unless you turn it off, and it will always be at this location. There are 6 shortcuts which you can customize, so you can create your own keyboard shortcuts and have them on the display at all times. So this is actually quite convenient. It's just that for some reason it doesn't work with these 3 apps. Concepts, Sketchable Plus, and Affinity Photo. By the way, if you want to write, the writing experience is pretty good. And this is able to capture my handwriting quite well. All right, let's select tool number 3, the arrow tool, select this and delete. Now, obviously, when you're using an app that is designed for Windows tablet, the workflow will be optimized or designed for touch, and it's going to be quite fluid. However, if you are using apps such as for example, Medibank, Photoshop, Krita, Clip Studio, that aren't designed for the touch interface. They aren't designed for Windows tablets. Not many gestures are supported. I mean, the basic gestures such as pen, zoom, rotate, they will be supported. But in this case, for example, two-finger tap to undo, which is quite common with many drawing apps, that is not available here, and also not available with Photoshop. Right, to conclude, okay, the pricing is definitely on the high side. I mean, $1,099 is quite pricey, but the performance definitely is, I would say, good enough to justify the price. Oh, the downside, yeah, let's not forget the downside, which is the display is not as sharp as it could be. Yeah, I just wish the display is sharper. I mean, when I look at the display right now from working distance away, as in 1 arm's distance away, the visuals look all right to me. Looks sharp enough. However, it's not as sharp compared to, well, other displays. Yeah, it's not blur. It's just not that sharp. That's all. So is sharpness going to be an issue, or is the softness going to be an issue? Well, that is something you will have to decide for yourself. I mean, all matte textured displays will have some sort of compromise. If the display is too rough, you will get color noise or grain or the sparkle. If the display is not that rough, you don't get the texture, but you get better visual quality. So every type of surface is a compromise. Okay, so this is just a really quick sketch of the temple, which is, by the way, this temple here. The Huion Kamvas Pro 19 is just one of many pen displays the company now sells. So if you need something larger, you can go with their 24-inch or the 27-inch version of this pen display, the Kamvas Pro 27. I am probably not going to review that, so I cannot say too much about that, but the drawing experience should be quite similar. Now, should you get this, or should you save like a lot of money by going with the 16-inch pen display, the one with 2560 by 1440p resolution? It really depends on how much budget you have. So Huion actually sells pen displays that are $200 all the way up to $1,000 over. So it really comes down to how much money you want to spend. I have pretty much covered everything I wanted to say. So if you guys are interested by this pen display, consider using the affiliate links that I have for you in the video description below to help support my YouTube channel, because I get some commission for each sale at no extra cost to you. And the money that I get is used for hosting my website and also buying stuff to review on this channel. Okay, so I hope this review is useful. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video. Bye.